I'm your host, Stephen Garton, and this is the Charity Charge Show. Today, I'm so excited to have with us the founder and CEO of Wine to Water. That is Doc Hendley. Doc, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, likewise. Well, start us off. I obviously I want to get into the why and the mission and how you got started with all this, but tell our listeners what's the mission of Wine to Water. What is it that you all do?
Well, it's the mission's pretty simple. Getting it done is another story sometimes, but we believe everyone on the planet has right to drink safe, clean drinking water. And unfortunately, I was going to learn many moons ago that there are literally billions of people on the planet that drink water that is not safe for consumption for an adult or a child. And so, a couple decades ago, we decided to get involved and see what we can do to help reach people. And it kind of slowly began to evolve from there to where, what about the really hardest to reach people? What about the people that no one's getting access to, the people that live in war-torn areas or disasters that are hard to reach? So our mission began to evolve, not just to help people have access to safe, clean drinking water, but we started to kind of personally take on that challenge of what about the people that are unreached? What about the ones that are the furthest out there really hard? So that's kind of our niche in the world, or has been for a while.
I really appreciate what you're doing, and I'm glad to have you on a guest, and we'll explore more. A lot of nonprofit organizations are doing incredible work that's very specific to the geographical community that they live in. I think this is going to be a really cool episode since you're broadening that to reach, as you call it, the unreachable. Take us back, right? Because it's really cool that you're the founder. What inspired you to start this organization?
Gosh, it's a good question because sometimes I have to replay it in my head sometimes to think like, is this real? Is it really real? Because I didn't plan this. I didn't go to school for it. I didn't have this like thing in my head where I'm going to create an organization one day to change the world. I was a bartender back in the early 2000s, and I love serving people. That's why I love being a bartender. And I actually thought that I might potentially be a bartender my whole life. I was very underwhelming at everything I tried to do in life. I was not a good student. I barely made it through high school, like at bottom of my class. Somehow, while bartending, like taking community college classes, got into a university and barely made it through university. Athletically, I'm not gifted. I'm very underwhelming and everything. So I got to the point where I'm bartending and I'm actually enjoying my job, doing pretty good at it, making decent money. So I'm like, this is great. And I got to do what I really enjoyed doing. I loved serving people. I fell in love with being a bartender, not because of the fun live music scene and the pub atmosphere at the old Irish pub that I worked at. Like I fell in love with being a bartender because I got to do life with all walks of life. I remember like happy hour, I'd be there and there'd be CEOs of their white collars sitting next to school teachers, next to construction workers, next to stay-at-home mamas, like all walks of life. And they were all there for the same reason. I just have a cold drink, hot plate of food, have a good conversation, forget about their day, And so I got to do life with people that I never really thought that I would interact with and just serve them with a smile and ask them about their day. And so that was it. I thought that was going to be where it ended. I'm not going to give in. We'll be here for too long if I get into like the depths of the story. But at that time, I was in my early to mid 20s and I was a bit reckless. I can be a bit of a handful in life. I make a lot of mistakes. And I was on a pretty not so good track at that time. Like it was pretty bad to where I kind of came to one of those crossroads where I'm like, if I keep going the track that I'm going to go, it's not going to end well for me or anybody. Like I might not survive or I might go like end up in prison or something like the wheels were coming off the train and all that kind of stuff. So I got to a point where I had been on a bender for a while. I decided one morning at 10 o'clock in the morning, I went to belly up to the bar, order a drink just to keep the bender going. And I just felt this weight, like, this is not it. Whatever this is not what you're supposed to be doing with your life. I felt the weight for weeks, but it wouldn't go away. And so finally, I didn't order my drink. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, fell down on my face in the bathroom. And I was just like, look, I can't do this anymore, whatever this is. And I don't know if you're out there and you listen to guys like me, but if you're listening, I'll do whatever you want me to do. If you got something else for me, and I can't do this anymore, whatever this is. And so I got up, packed up my pickup truck, asked my boss for a couple of weeks off the bar just to clear my head, get sobered up. And in the middle of the night one night in my bed, when I was taking a break, I just had this, I don't know what you want to call it. Nope, I don't know if it was a dream. I don't know if it was a vision. I don't know what it was, but I had the phrase in my head, wine to water, over and over, wine to water. And I'm like, I can't sleep. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning, kind of half asleep, half awake, this weird, and I grabbed a pad and pen and I wrote down wine to water on my pad because I play a little music. So I started thinking, like, this is kind of cool idea for a song. Like, it's backwards of Jesus' first miracle. Like, I might could make a cool country song out of this. I don't know. So I wrote down wine to water on my pad. And right when I could see the words written out, wine to water, on my page, my I don't know, my insides got all knotted up, and I got this real nervous feeling in my gut that I'd not really felt much in my life. I just knew it was supposed to be something else. I didn't know what. I couldn't sleep now. I'm wide awake. And so I went down to my parents' computer, just started researching, and I'm like, maybe some, I don't know, maybe God's trying to tell me something. Maybe I'm supposed to know something about water. I got no clue. So I started researching on Google, like water issues, water problems. Maybe like I pour wine every day at my job. Maybe I'm supposed to use that to do something water. And so what filled that screen up on that computer at 3, 4 in the morning that night, I started seeing pictures of these families, these women and kids, these people walking every single morning before the sun comes up. They grab a 5-gallon bucket empty. They walk for a couple hours, fill it up with nasty, dirty water. We'll talk about in a minute. That looks like this right here, just filthy. And they walk back. Now that 5 gallons is 40 pounds, and they walk back. And they do it every day. And those kids, when you drink water that looks like this, those kids, they don't make it very long, a lot of them. One of the number one reasons why a child won't make it to their fifth birthday is because of diarrheal disease due to dirty water. So anyway, that's the night I learned about the global water crisis, that it was going on, and that pad, and with that weird phrase backwards on it, turned into a notepad, and I started jotting down, maybe I could raise money. Maybe I could use my bartending job as a way to raise funds, put a tip jar out, tell people about this, and maybe I could help one family, like one of these kids behind me. Maybe I could help like one little community, and that's where it started. Like maybe I could use my abilities as a bartender just to pour drinks and have fun and bring in live music maybe and do these wine to water events. Maybe I could raise a few $1,000s and help 1 or 2 families, 1 or 2 communities. And that was the beginning. I didn't know we'd be where we are now, where we're getting close to 3 million people, worked in over 50 countries around the world, some of the most war-torn places and areas that I never imagined a guy like me would go to. That's where it started.
I really appreciate you sharing that and talking about some of the impact that you've done. Bring us back. I mean, what year was it that you founded Wine to Water?
So that night, that kind of weird dream phrase, that was December of 2003. I held the very first Wine to Water event in February of 2004. It took me about 6 weeks to pull it together, and was raising money in the bars that I worked at for 6 months. And I quit my bar job in August of 2004 and moved to the Darfur region of Sudan, to start helping people that were part of the government or that were victims of the government-sponsored genocide in Darfur, to help them get water while they were trying to begin.
To educate also, our viewers on the impact that you've made. So this has been going on for 23 years now, 2003 to 2026. I had in my notes that you all have helped over 2 million people in 50 plus countries, but I think you might have even said 3 million.
We're getting close to 3. Yep. So we
That's
crossed 2
incredible.
million a little over a year ago, and our numbers each year is increasing. So
Tell us in a practical way, because I think for anyone that's listening here, myself included, I take clean water for granted, right? Was born in the US. We have this infrastructure here. I've always had access to clean water, a sink, our kitchen, bathrooms, all that stuff. Does it really look like in these communities, these 50 countries? I mean, I know you talked about walking, but people going long distances even to get it. But then what happens when they bring back that jug to their community?
yeah, so it looks a lot of different things. So we use dozens of different technologies because the problem is a lack of access to safe water. Sometimes it's walking to get water. Sometimes they have water right there near their homes or their villages, and it's just filthy. So the problem is twofold. There's water access and water cleanliness. That's kind of our foundation that we address first before anything else. And so in a place like Darfur, Sudan, where I first started, a lot of that was like in the middle of the war there, the enemy would a lot of times shoot up and destroy the wells that were there, or there would be refugee camps that people way out and they don't have access to water. And so we'd have to figure out how to just to get them access to water, just repair those wells, fix those broken wells that have been shot up and destroyed so they can work again, or bring water to a refugee camp because their whole village had been destroyed and they're now living in these camps. So access is one thing, and that generally looks like either wells and or other more sustainable solutions like rainwater harvesting, depending on the areas of the world that we're in. We love sustainable technologies when it makes sense. So we do a lot of rainwater harvesting because if they have roofs, we can capture rainwater. And even if it only have a few months a year of rain, you can create the cisterns large enough and done well enough to where you can have water for the year round, depending on the roof square footage and all that. So anyway, there's access, and then there is filtration. So the reason why these kids are not making it around the world isn't because of the walking. It's because the water they drink is filthy and looks more like chocolate milk or the coffee that we drink in the morning. That's what's causing all the diseases and the problems. So we get into
And we
filtration.
do. I'll just jump in. We publish the video and video clips, but for anyone listening, David's holding up a water bottle that's filled with what looks to be just disgusting, murky
Yeah.
water in it, right? And you've
Yeah.
developed tell us about the device that you've developed.
Yeah, so we got a filter. I'll show you how this works, but it started with sustainable technology. We started making water filters out of sand and gravel and concrete that we can make out of local materials. And we still use filters like that. Some of them are made out of ceramics, like a flower pot that we can make, not a flower pot. We can make it clean the water to where it'll take dirty water like I'm holding in my hand that looks like chocolate milk and turn it into crystal clear, clean water. But what started happening, we started responding to like other wars and disasters. Let's take Ukraine, for example. We have 400 volunteers on the ground in Ukraine working in and out of the front lines and bomb shelters, helping people have access to safe, clean water. I went inside Syria after ISIS broke out to help the people there that were fleeing ISIS and fleeing the war in Syria in the early days back in like 2012 and 13. And we needed a filter. I couldn't fly in flower pots to Syria or these big, huge concrete sand and gravel. So we needed a technology that would last a long time, but that's really small that can get into these places. So we started using filters that backpackers and hikers would use around the world that uses a technology that's the same as kidney dialysis technology. It's called hollow fiber membrane technology, or it's just a membrane filter. And it's about the size of a Coke can. And it can, backpackers, hikers were carrying them. I started noticing humanitarian aid workers carrying them. I got to meet the CEO of one of the companies that was making these filters and convinced them to let me buy them in bulk and all broken down pieces and parts. And we would have volunteers put them together so that we can get the cost down and send them out. And so we started using that technology, that type of filter for a number of years. And then we realized when the pandemic hit, like we need to control the supply chain. We couldn't control the costs. As my filter costs, or as my filter orders went from 5,000 to 10,000 a year to 20,000 a year to 30,000 a year, the price went from one price to 100% increase to another 40% increase to 60, like that just kept increasing price, increasing production issues. And so years later, I was just like, we have to make our own filter. So now we produce our own membrane filter. I'm holding it. I know a lot of people are listening. They can't see it. It's called the drop filter, named after our disaster response team. So disaster response operation stands for drop. That's what we use in the field. We manufacture the majority of the components right here in North Carolina and Tennessee. There's some parts we have to bring in. We assemble them, and then we get them out in the field. And I'll just show you. They'll last for a minimum of 10 years, these filters. They'll take water that looks like the chocolate milk here, and in just
completely
seconds,
clear. It looks like a magic trick.
Yeah.
Wow.
Take water. I would not drink this water because I don't want to be sick for the next couple of weeks, but I'll drink this water.
Putting his
That's our
money where
filter.
his mouth is, literally.
That's it. So anyway,
I love it.
we produce our own filters now, and really cool is obviously we use our own product in the field where we're working in these 50 plus different countries. But we started saying, I know we're a charity, but almost every time we do a volunteer program, our volunteers are like, hey, can I have one of these filters from my house? I live in Florida. I live in these Gulf Coast areas. I live in Western North Carolina, and we just got hit by a storm. I need something in case my well goes out or my water goes out. Can I have these? Or I'm a backpacker or a hiker. So we started selling them too online to see if, again, we're a charity. So any profits that come in from the filter, we just reinvest it to the people around the world that we serve to help them get one that can't afford one. So,
That's awesome. I really appreciate that. We're gonna go deeper on that and some other things, but I wanna also just acknowledge, something really cool for anyone listening. Obviously, the organization that Doc founded has been around for 23 years. Doc was selected as one of the top 10 CNN heroes in 2009, chosen by a panel of judges, including General Colin Powell, Whoopi Goldberg, Ted Turner, and Sir Elton John. And you're also, if people are interested in learning more and just kind of following his whole story, you published the book Wine to Water: A Bartender's Quest to Bring Clean Water to the World in 2012. So that's pretty cool. And I hadn't read the book, but I'm going to order a copy and get in even deeper because you're making me really interested about your whole background, how you did this, Doc. At Charity Charge, we work with about 3,000 nonprofits, right? And I think that some of the things that I would like to ask you about are the lessons learned that you have made, because it's really remarkable, right? It's really rare to have someone who's a founder, but also then can be enduring 23 years later and really scale an organization to the type of impact. So I'm curious, like over these 23 years, and I know we had talked a little bit before we hit record about, your journey to become a better and better leader. What are some of the things, like what's the one or two big key lessons that you've learned these past 23 years that have you help the organization succeed and allow you to become a better leader over the 23 years?
gosh, that is a great question. We'd probably be here all day if I was trying to go through all the things I learned, but I'd say I'd start with the one you just mentioned, leadership. I think for the first 10, 15 years of this, I was kind of my own worst enemy because I know all the things that I'm not. It's very clear the things that I'm not good at. I think that's one of the things that one of the things I am. I think if you look at it as a plus, I'm very self aware, sometimes to a fault, and so I kind of was at a point for a number of years where I don't know business. I don't know how to hire and fire. I don't know how to look at P&Ls and spreadsheets and computers and Excels and all that kind of stuff. And so I would constantly bring in other people to do that, and it was great because I didn't have the luxury to like, well, let me just pause everything and go get a graduate degree somewhere and learn from some professor. Like I just want to do it. I just want to be in it. And I learn better by someone showing me how to do it. And so I would hire people to come in and lead this for, I think, probably about 7 year stretch. I hired different executive directors and CEOs to run the organization. And I just work alongside of them, try not to screw it up too bad. And and sometimes those things worked out really well. Like who we were talking about, a good friend of mine that David Cuthbert, was our CEO 5 years and was amazing. And I learned so much from him. And I had friends on the board that would come off the board and help run. And I had other people that didn't work out and I needed to learn, gosh, that wasn't a good fit. I need to move on. And so I learned a lot in that just by bringing in leaders that I looked up to and learned from them real time, right in it. But I think to this time too, because like I told you earlier, I stepped back in the CEO role back in 2018, just before the pandemic, and I've never felt ready. I've never felt like I was enough of a as a leader to lead something like this. And I still don't. I think a lot of times that's just kind of my DNA. But I've learned that, especially now that I've gotten to work with so many different amazing leaders, it's that and leader is kind of like the word love. Like you love your you love your wife, you love your kids, you might hopefully love your job, you love your dog. Like you could take the word love and it has literally 50,000 different meanings depending on the where it's directed towards. My love for my children is vastly different from my love for coffee. Now, I love my coffee. Don't worry, it's up there. But but that attachment. So I've learned that leadership's kind of the same. Like these books, because I read these books and I'm like, crap, I suck at that. I suck at that. And the books would actually just make me feel worse. So but I've learned that there's so many different types of leadership that's out there. And the thing that I'm trying to do now, where we are now, 23 years down the road, is pull all the different types of leaders that are really awesome and unique in their own areas. Some are very logistically minded, operationally minded. Some are really good at coaching and building teams. Some are really good at having a vision, looking out, head in the clouds or whatever, and pulling leaders like that together, and all of us together kind of figure out what's the path forward and learn from all of those, instead of trying to think that there's just one type of leadership, because there's not just one. There's not just one type of. So that's really the biggest progression for me as far as leadership goes, and it helps me to not be so hard on myself, because now I can really I live in the clouds like I always have, whether it's the middle of the night in 2003, or whether it's dreaming about what this organization become, or whether it's dreaming about making a product. Will this ever happen one day? For years, envisioning how do you do injection molding? I don't know. I'm not a manufacturer, but I can live in the clouds, and then I need to find people that are amazing at that area and leading the area. And it's really kind of helped take a lot of that load off my shoulders. And I don't have to be all those things. I just got to find the people that are really good at this area or that area, and then bring them together and keep learning from them the way I've always learned from great leaders.
That's amazing. No, I appreciate you saying that. And also how you've had the organization over 23 years, having to adapt and bring in different people at the right time of different stages of growth, I think has been really critical for you, and your self-awareness and being able to endure and still have the passion to be able to do it. I mean, that's kind of how I feel. I mean, we're a little over 10 years in here at Charity Charge, and I'm more passionate about it now, and I've always been, but it just keeps growing and growing. And I think that for me, having a positive psychology, around leadership and wanting to be here and wanting to see it grow, I can see that in you as well. Although I know it's a little bit different than your answer, but I just want to let you know that that's coming through and through. And I think that that's, a huge testament to the success, but also the long running nature of the organization. Give us a sense of scale. I mean, what kind of revenue is Wine to Water doing these days?
Sure. So when I came back in at the end of 2018, I think we hit our first. We were just under 2 million, actually. I think we were at 1.8, 1.9 million, something like that. And then the pandemic hit. And I was like, oh, geez. That was all hands on deck. We had to, I literally scale the organization down by 60%. That was tough that year. But we were able to maintain. I think it was 2018, we were around 1.8, 1.9 million. And then in 2019, I think we were right at 2 million. So I think we went up just a hair, but it was still kind of flat. And then 2000.
Do you know that 97% of all nonprofits are under 2 million in revenue?
Somebody told me that. And
so you're already in the 3%, but the high achievers can it's like the curse or the yin and the yang
to get to, yeah.
Kind of can't see all the success that they've created sometimes.
Oh,
and just
that's
want
right.
to grow and do more and more. And so where would you be now? Are you still around that?
Went from 2 million 19, then we were at 3 million and 20, 21, 4 million, 22, 5 million ish, or close to 6, 23, around 6 a million as well. 24, we jumped up to 13 million. And then we're probably going to, when I say 24, our fiscal year starts in July. So we just ended 24, 25, which was the 13 million year that we had. And we're right in the middle of 25, 26. So our peak was 13 million, but that was an anomaly kind of blip, because you could see the trend. We'd go up a year and kind of flatline and go up another year and then flatline and kind of trend like that. And then we jumped, but that jump was because we were one of the main responding organizations to the Western North Carolina storms that happened back in 24, because we're based in Western North Carolina. And so that just, all our staff, volunteers, we had over 1,000 volunteers regularly delivering not just water to people whose water was shut off, but medicines, food. We exploded during that year, and that's gone. So we're course correcting back down to the normal curve that we were on before. And so that's our goal now, is how do we keep that trend going upwards, knowing anomalies come and go, but how do you continue that? So that's where we're at. Revenue.
That's a whole episode in and of itself.
Yeah,
that we can do in the future. And I also, I think for people listening that are founders, they're thinking like, how do I even get into that top 3%, right? That founding from $0 to 2 million. But what I'd like to ask you today is, what were the things, how did you then grow past that 2 million? Like you're talking about from 2018 or 2019, you were at that 2 million and then you guys really took off. What was it what insight or things did you do differently that helped you really grow that the revenue?
So I started looking at it the way, and I didn't know this was going to be a trend. I think it's starting to be a trend now. Back then, I was just like, the model that charities go at, because by that time, 2018, 19, where we're stuck kind of in that 2 million range and kind of flatlining a little bit. I'm like, why do charities have to do it this way? Why do you have to create a budget and then bust your butt all year long to fundraise to try to reach that budget and then spend that budget and then start all over again? Like, I want to be able to do this for another 30, 40 years until I'm done. I don't have the energy to do that every year. And so it's the same kind of thing we look at like in our own personal lives. I just started thinking like, what if the 501c3 is there because everything we do for our mission or our cause. So it's there, but we're still an incorporation before we're anything else. Why can't we act like a business? If I was a business and I'm flatlining at 2 million and I want to go bigger and I want to go more, what would I do? I'd diversify revenue streams, period. End of story. Multiple revenue streams. That's it. And so we started really thinking outside the box, even things that may not really make sense. And I had to really try to explain to the board, like, I don't really know if this is going to work, but it makes sense in my head that lives in the clouds all the time. So we started diversifying revenue streams and not relying just on that tip jar at an event to raise money the way that we were always doing it and hoping that it just works again the next year. Like, you got to start creating diversified revenue streams. And for every 6, 7 that you create, hopefully 1 or 2 of them breaks out to be a good 10, 15% of your revenue. And the others may not work. But the fear of them not working is what keeps people from doing that. And also the fact that nonprofit charities with diversified revenue streams thinking like a business is still foreign, probably, to those other 97%. They just say, this is what we do. We deliver meals, or we are a healthcare organization. We do this. Here's what we want to do this year. And we're going to host a gala, and we're going to send out some newsletters, and we're going to put some social media posts out there, and we're going to hope people give, and then we're going to start all over and do it all over again next year.
First of all, I totally agree with you. 100%, and even here, as we're set up as a public benefit corporation, but we are, legally a for-profit company here at Charity Charge. And we've had to, over the past couple of years, as we, started with one product, then we had 2 products. We had to start thinking about how can we diversify revenue, provide more protection for the business. And then also, like, to just be able to actually scale, we have to be getting into, other things. And even last year, I mean, I think we launched 5 new products, and one of them's going very well. Another one is going pretty well. And the other 3 or 4 aren't working out, but that's okay. But also, I mean, I didn't know that going in. I'm more like you, kind of visionary ideas. So I was like, hey, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And then you kind of come to the end of the year, you're obviously tracking it throughout it. But for me, December and taking a break around the holidays is such a time of just reflection. We always have a nice holiday break for everyone here at the end of the year. And I really start looking at the big picture, and you realize, like, okay, well, these things didn't pan out, but this did. And then let's do more of what worked. Right. And then, but also now we'll try out a couple of other new things. So for you guys, right, what were a couple of things that did work out? I mean, and I'm curious, maybe I'm leading too much. The earned revenue model, I'm really curious how that was, that the piece, selling kind of the water bottle components.
No, that's actually more recent. Oh gosh, where do we start? Some of them, so one of the earliest ones that started, it was more of just the way I operate. That's in some nonprofit leadership circles, they'll warn you against this, and I want to say it in the best way possible that I think there's a lot right with what they're saying, but like the idea of mission creep, like you can't just jump into this because your message gets convoluted, your mission gets convoluted. So one of them started. So I totally agree with that concept as a whole, but sometimes there's anomalies that happen. So one of them kind of started by accident, which is we, in the first few months of the pandemic, like the restaurant industry is really what we got to start from, the bar world, hosting events for us, raising fundraisers, bartenders donating their tips on certain nights of the year. Like that was the thing. And when y'all remember probably the first 4, 5, 6 months of the pandemic, not one restaurant was open. Like before they started doing the drive-throughs and the pick up your food, they were just closed. And so we started again. I actually jumped ahead a little bit. I'll go back and explain something. But we below our global headquarters, we had a restaurant below that would raise funds to cover to go to Wine to Water, which was a diversified revenue stream. And that restaurant shut down. I'll get into that one in a minute. That restaurant shut down, and so I had all this freezer space, all this food, all this stuff. And I said, you know what? Until all the food goes out, we're going to start a drive-through this first week of COVID when everybody's at home, and we're going to give people free groceries and free food. So we started feeding people out of that restaurant for free. So many people loved it, and they got their meals that way. We fed over 250,000 meals after the next like handful of weeks. And so other groups would come by, donate food, donate finances, donate money so that we could feed the people that were taking care of us. I'll back up just a little bit. So that became a revenue stream that just kind of was like an aha moment for us. We didn't have to do it forever, but it was something that was an opportunity for us to take care of the people that took care of us for so long. We had the restaurant because I wanted it to be a part of the charity itself under the 501c3. The board was very much like, there could be some liabilities. We're in a college town. It does serve alcohol. Like, we don't want to get into the liability stuff. And I'm like, totally get it. So I started it more probably like your company's set up. It was an actual company with number of owners, like 7 different owners. And it was like, we're not officially a charity on paper, but we're only going to exist to raise revenue once all our bills are paid. Well, all the revenue will go to Wine to Water. That'll be what it's all about. Whether it's a 501c3 or not, didn't matter to me. So that's how we set it up. And the reason why we did that is because I wanted the building that I wanted for the organization to operate off was one of the most historic buildings in Boone, North Carolina, where we are. And I wanted Wine to Water to own that building. So I had to convince the board to let me buy real estate as a charity. And they're like, well, you just keep renting. No charities own real estate. I'm like, I know this. Trust me. I know we can get renovations for free from contractors that'll donate their time. We can renovate the whole building. We can increase the value. It was smart for a business to do it if we knew we can get that donated, and then you increase your equity in that building. So anyway, the board was gracious. They were like, all right, we'll let you do the building. We don't want to do the restaurant because it's too much risk. I'm like, that's fair enough. That makes sense. So we did the restaurant anyway, and just owned it. And that paid for the mortgage of the building for years. And then when we decided to start manufacturing our own filters, we grew out of that building. But by that time, the pandemic was long gone. The building had increased in value by between 200% and 300% because of the renovations that we've done to it. So now we had all this equity when we needed to go buy warehouses to start producing water filters and having a campus. We transferred all of that over. And so now we have multiple warehouses here in Western North Carolina. We have our machinery. We bought injection molding equipment. We acquired an injection molding business. Instead of me learning it, I just acquired a business that does injection molding, bought the business to do these parts here. And so again, injection molding, real estate, restaurant to send money in. And there were, for every 3 or 4 of that worked, like I said, there's, to your point, what you were saying, for every one, there's 4 or 5 that didn't work. So there's dozens of things that we tried to do that didn't work. But as you've probably learned too, I know it sounds a little cliche, but I learned just as much, probably more, from the ones that don't work. So even though they cost money, sort of, if you do it right, you can do it in a way that, it's not like you're out much. But what you learn when you create something and it fails, for lack of a better word, a lot of times I'll learn so much more so that when we do something again, it ensures that next thing has better chance of success. So the failures are every bit as important as the ones that do work, in my opinion.
That's awesome. You are in rare air. A lot of people can learn from you, and I hope that happens throughout people listening to this episode. But everyone that you interact with can learn something special from you. And definitely on the real estate side, I mean, those are, because we deal in lines of credit, credit cards, and bringing favorable rates and whatnot to nonprofit organizations. But the ones that are always the best to succeed are ones that own assets. We work with, for example, a lot of churches. They own the building, they own the church building and the land that it's on. They don't plan to sell it, but they have so much equity in that banks and people that they're trying to do business with on a financing side or us, it's just the books look really good. So the real estate side is really cool. I wanted to ask you, Doc, for people that are listening in, I know you've mentioned about like volunteering. What are ways that people can support? Can you tell us the URL, how people can obviously, support the organization? What are ways that people can get involved if they're listening to this?
Yeah. So, I mean, the easy thing, obviously, if you want to learn more, Wine to Water, WINETOWATER. It's really easy, wineToWater.org. Or we've just recently got WTW.org. So that's really easy. But either one, go to the same place. You can Google Wine to Water. We're the only water charity out there with the name, so we'll come up first. You can go learn more there people like to support a specific area cause. But for us, even more so, I mean, obviously donations are great, but we actually love for people to get involved. So we have an opportunity. We're a little different than other water charities where you go to a lot of other water charities or websites, there'll be like a FAQ area and it'll be all the reasons why, because people ask, well, can I come dig a well? Can I come build a filter? Can I go be a part? And a lot of the FAQs are, here's all the reasons why you can't. And ours are like, why would you not want to come? These places we work are amazing. The teams on the ground in Nepal and Tanzania and Colombia, back in Amazon jungle, Dominican Republic, all over the world. Our teams are really they're amazing thing. I learn from them every day. I want people to learn from them and get to hang out with them too. So we love for people if they've got a break from work to volunteer with our teams, go dig a well, go build a filter, go distribute a filter to a school or build a rainwater harvest system somewhere. And then there's a lot of people that, traveling internationally may not be in the book in the cards for them. And so the other way we love it is one of the things that we do is a hands-on experience for people that have companies or other charities. We got a really big organization that helps like massive fundraising for other organizations. They're going to do a volunteer experience with Wine to Water just here in a few weeks where we send all the broken down pieces from our injection molding factory. And instead of having an assembly line of staff that we pay to put these pieces together and send off in the field, we have volunteers at these events and companies build the filters. And then those filters that an individual built, they go straight over to Jamaica after a hurricane, the people that need the filters, or Ukraine after a war breaks out, or Morocco after an earthquake, or wherever. And so a lot of the ways people love to support Wine to Water is to just get their hands dirty, volunteer, build a filter, and then if they want and they like it, go deliver that filter yourself.
That's awesome. There's a lot of ways that people can get involved, and I'm definitely going to get involved now that I know about this. I really appreciate you sharing winetowater.org. It's super cool to have you on. I really appreciate this opportunity. What you're doing is just incredible. It really is, but it's not just the mission, which is super important, but that you've actually figured out how to run it like a business, which I believe every nonprofit should be thinking to be able to actually fulfill on that mission for decades to come. So super cool what you've been able to do. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And that's a thing that like I didn't know. Like I remember telling you, like I didn't know I didn't know what a P&L was. I was like pros and I don't know, whatever. Like I had no idea when people would say it. So like David Cuthbert, who came in, I learned from him. And one of the revenue models, which was the restaurant, like as we're kind of have a bunch of owners running that to try to bring in like I had to learn what a P&L was, like how to read it, how to read a balance sheet, and so through those revenue streams, some that worked, some that didn't. To me, like I didn't understand business, I didn't go to school for it, but through all those trials and errors of trying different revenue streams, revenue models, creating businesses, acquiring other businesses, and the histories we've acquired other nonprofits, like mergers, acquisitions, things like that. We've done a number of those things that have taught me how to do that stuff. And I still now I just feel like I know there's some age old phrase out there when you begin to learn, you really you're always learning all the things that you don't know. The more you learn, the more you know that you have to learn, basically. But I'm now to your point, what you were just saying, like in 10 years, you're more passionate than ever. And I'm the same way for two reasons. One, I'm like a sponge. I just love acquiring more knowledge and information because it just helps me be a better CEO, a better helps me with this organization better. But two, the second thing for me is I don't think I'd be alive right now if it wasn't for this organization. This organization was a gift. And I don't actually, it's funny when people call me the founder, it makes me kind of think, I think it's the other way around. I think Wine to Water found me instead of me founding it. And I just got to be the very first beneficiary whose life was saved. So I'm not going anywhere. And I've got to get better. I've got to learn. I don't have the luxury of just doing something else because this organization saved my life. You know, like that old Robin Hood story where like you got the guy saves somebody's life and they're like there for the rest of their life as their right hand man. Like I'm here. Like that's what I feel like. Like this organization saved my life. I don't have the luxury to just do something else or not try to be the best I can be because I've got to give back to this place that allows me to be where I am right now. So
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate having you on this episode. I'm gonna round it out and just thank everyone who's listening in. I think this was one of our most impactful episodes that we've had. So Doc, thank you so much for being on. For those that are listening in, thank you for tuning into the Charity Charge Show. Please check out winetowater.org and get involved. Thank you.
thank you so much.